Hey everyone, welcome back to another exciting episode of In the Chute. I'm Brandon Carpenter, the Hashknife Ranch, and with me is my oldest son, Calen, the techno specialist. Yeah, he's got me
Um,
set up, and he gets frustrated because they got to teach me how to turn the computer on every time. But you know what?
we get there.
If that's the hardest thing that you ever have to do in your life dealing with me, you've got it pretty well damn made. So, what
Yeah,
do you got
true.
for us today?
So question is, we are partial to gated horses because we own Hash Knife Tennessee Walker. Well, Tennessee Walkers. We coin them as Hash Knife Tennessee Walkers. Um, they're an even four beat gated
There
horse
you go.
breed. That's what they do. Outside of gated horses, what would you say is your favorite breed? Either because of training or because of just being familiar with them, or what would it be your favorite? And that can be a draft horse, it can be anything.
I don't know. I've trained a lot of different breeds. I mean, and a lot of good horses in a lot of different breeds, and I've trained some bad horses in almost every breed. So,
Yeah.
you know, God, that's hard to. I mean, it's really hard to tell. Let's put it this way: for ease of training, um, I like gated horses because they have just a lot quieter mind. Some of your larger breeds have a quieter mind. Arabs, quarter horses aren't so quiet. They're just a little bit more and it's individual specific too because every breed has got somebody who's hyper or not head. Um, got some inbreeding or line breeding. I mean, there's some issues there. It can be. Uh, they're a lot calmer kind of horse as far as the walking horse or Tennessee Walkers, fox trotters, Missouri or Rocky Mountains. Some of your southern. I'm talking southern. I'm talking. Um, Central America, South American horses, Mexican, the Pasofino, the Peruvian Pasos, uh, what is it, Mangalora, Marchadora. Some of those breeds that are, they're hot. It's cultural too because some of those countries, people in the countries want their horses with mucho brillo. They want them fiery, kind of a, the whole machismo thing of the Latin
Mm-hmm.
culture. We want our horses a little calmer, sane. Um, so with that, I think our walking horses are a really good representation of a calm, quiet, well-minded breed. Now, easy to train that part, easy to work with, but then you have to know what you're doing to be able to get them to gait and gait naturally and be able to maintain a gait, build some muscle memory. That takes work.
Oh yeah.
So it's
And
kind of nice
concentration
to.
on the rider's part too.
Oh, it absolutely is. And being a good rider, I mean, you need to be able to adjust your body so that horse can carry you and you can influence that gait just by your posture in the saddle. And I see a lot of people that ride non-gated horses and they just sit on that horse. And yeah, they may be posting a trot or standing a 3-point stance on a trot, but they're not doing anything other than riding that horse for their comfort. They're not influencing that horse necessarily
Mm-hmm.
to influence the gait. They may be influencing them, to move uphill or go downhill, that kind of stuff. Uh, Sharp turns. There's always those that are universal kind of posture or balance issues. But it's kind of nice to go from sometimes a walking horse or a bunch of walking horses where you're working on gait and really getting them to get a good consistent gait and working hard to do that. Yeah, and it's been an easy transition, easy mental training for them, and then to go to a say a quarter horse that's um, even mildly hot, or an Arab that's hot. They're really smart. Most Arabs I've been around are exceptionally smart too. Um, they've got some issues with anatomy where they're rougher to ride, but you're not really working on gait at that point. You're just,
Right.
once you get past and get through the mental training, which can be a little bit tougher to get them to bond with you. But once that's done, now you're just riding them, and you're just getting them better at reining and stops and turns, and putting them through some terrain, working cattle, just a lot of practical things to get them uh, to a finished product, and not working on that gait. And so that's kind of nice to break that up. So they're a little harder on one spectrum, but easier on another compared to your gated horses. Um, so, God, as far as a favorite, I don't know. I mean, I really like our walking horses. We wouldn't have them. But other than those, Jesus, I don't know. That's, I mean, I tend to have a favorite, whichever one happens to be between my knees at the time, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, because you're working on them
You mess with the
and you're making
personalities more than
headway.
anything.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And there's some horses that, I have not cared for. I'll be honest with you, you get them trained and you just don't, you don't care for them, and you can tell that they don't necessarily care for you. I mean, they're doing the work in spite, and you try to be as honest with them and forgiving and do what you need to do with them and giving them every chance you can. But sometimes some of them are just, they're not heads.
Yeah.
And so that it's hard to like an animal like that. I mean, you try to do that, but I also find it, the end of a training when an owner comes and picks that horse up and leaves with it, there's a part of you that hates to see it go too. I mean, there's a little bit of goes with that horse, a part of you that leaves with him. So yeah, that's to say a favorite. That's really tough. I don't know if that's a good question, but I don't know if it's a fair question to be able to answer.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
So I guess another thing would be, other than a breed that you have never trained, what has been the one that you've trained the fewest of? So like if you've only trained one, I don't know, like for me it's a Frisian. I've only trained one Frisian. He was cool,
Yeah.
but he was
Uh,
also different. He ate bananas, by the way, folks. You want to meet a horse that eats bananas? He would eat a banana, like straight
he
the whole thing.
loved
It was great.
he loved bananas. That was the
Uh,
goofiest thing in the world to see. Yeah, that horse loved
when
bananas.
she told us that, I was like, no way. She doesn't no. And she's like, yeah, really. So we tried it. I was like, we specifically went and got a bunch of bananas to go try it. First thing we went and did, went right out there and he just snarfed the whole thing down. I'm like, oh, okay, he likes
Yeah,
bananas.
I'd never seen a horse eat a banana like that, but
Uh,
maybe it's common where they grow bananas. I don't know. Um, the ones I probably have trained the least of, uh, Peruvian Paso, Pasofinos. I've trained a few, but not many of them. I think the least one is Peruvian Pasos. I've never trained an Icelandic, and it's a gaited horse.
oh, that'd be cool. Yeah, because they're smaller though, right? Though.
Yeah, they're
Uh,
usually a smaller, rounder. They're like a miniature Rocky Mountain in a way, but they're like pony size, but they are tough little buggers.
so
I love
where
to
I'm going,
watch them. I think
you
they're
you know
cool.
where I'm going with this, right?
I kind of do.
Yeah, as soon as you start riding that puppy, your feet are gonna be dragging on the floor. You're gonna be so I trained a mule one time, folks, and she was the cutest thing ever. I loved her. Her name was Polly, and uh she was super short. She was, oh, if anything, like 14 and a half hands. Like she was tiny. And you pretty much, she put you on. You didn't put her on. and
Yeah.
like it was like being on top of a little tiny crotch rocket and just like going through the grass. It was hilarious because I wasn't used to what I was looking like because I didn't see it until I switched with my dad one time when we're going out riding. I was riding her, and then we got to like the halfway point. I was like, okay, we're gonna go back. How about you ride and I'll ride her? Okay, sounds good. So we swap, and all of a sudden I'm riding a normal sized horse. First of all, I'm getting used to height again because I was like a million feet up in the air. Second, I look over and I see him, and his legs, his mid thighs are in the grass. And I was like, oh, okay. That's what goofiness I look like. I suddenly became very self aware when I was riding her. I would try and go out really early and really late so people wouldn't see.
Well, and you remember a little mule I trained named Junior.
Yeah.
Do you remember him? He was even
A little
smaller
bit,
than her.
just a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah, he really wasn't really built for riding. He was more for, a really
Pack.
small pack animal. And I did pack him, but that little guy, I mean, my feet were like inches, like 6 inches, 7 inches off the ground. And I remember the first ride I took on him, I took him out of the corral. And mules are so dang smart. They're really fun that way because they are so smart. And I took him out, and he did not want to. He didn't think he needed to be doing that, and he couldn't get rid of me. I mean, it was just, all I can do is stand up if I had to. And
Uh,
I'm riding him, and he's going along, and he's just really moving as fast as he can move. He's little, at a walk. And I'm holding him up, and I look up, and down the road comes a neighbor, and he sees me, and you can see he just starts doing a belly laugh. You could see him through the windshield of the vehicle because he's looking at me. I'm 6'1" on this little mule that he's mature enough to hold me, but it had to look like a dang cartoon. and he got a kick out of it. But yeah, it's sometimes it's like, oh my god, some of these little guys like that are funny.
So
Yeah, I
I
haven't trained a lot of mules, but I've trained a couple, um, few I should say. Um, yeah, it's really hard to. Yeah, I don't know. There's a lot of horse breeds out there that I've never been around too. I mean,
so I
anybody who
guess
says that they've been around every horse breed
yeah.
either has been around a lot or they're a damn liar.
Yeah, but probably a liar because there's just I think it's a lot like bugs. You're never going to be able to be around all the bugs in the world.
Well, yeah,
But
that's true.
like I guess the next thing is you said you thought Peruvian Paso was probably the least amount of uh horses in that breed that you've trained.
Yeah, I think so.
So what's the
Yeah.
what was the biggest difference did you think between them and like a Tennessee Walker or any other gaited horse that you've dealt with?
Was the Peruvian was a little hot, which
So
was
just
normal. I mean, that's what
attitude,
they're supposed
yeah.
to. Yeah, attitude. Um, and it was funny because I had trained some horses for these people who wanted me to train her, and they wanted her trained in a Peruvian Bozal. And I said, hey, well, look, I've never trained a Peruvian, and I've certainly never trained one in a Peruvian Bozal. And they said, oh yeah, we know you'll figure it out. You know what you're doing.
Blind faith.
I'm like, and I said, how do you? I said, well, you've trained every other horse we ride and did a great job, and they really walked well. And I said, okay, wait a minute, we need to talk about this. And I said, what is this? What's the Peruvian Paso's signature gait? What do you want this horse to do? What are they supposed to do as a
Mhm.
gait? And it really
Was
was
that a rhetorical question at the time, or was that a legitimate one from you?
no, that was a legitimate question from me to them,
Yeah.
because if you have to alter their gait, or they're trying to be more square in their gait. I mean, you're gonna
Mhm.
try to do that and encourage that and get some muscle memory for that, as long as it doesn't hurt their overall conformation, as long as they're conformed to do that. You don't want to hurt the horse. And so uh, they said, oh yeah, well, they're supposed to do a sobreandando. Like, okay,
What's
what the
that?
hell's a sobreandando? And they explain it, and I go, okay, you're basically doing what I know is a stepping pace,
Yeah.
and
So
or an
that's what it
extended
is.
stepping pace, almost yeah. And
Okay.
then they said, yeah, and their head is supposed to be up and their nose is supposed to be out. I said, okay, that makes sense for
Okay.
that, because they're going to be into some ventral flexion or dropping of the back and the belly, and loosening the belly ring muscles and just relaxing, so that will force them out of the flexion a little bit to achieve a more lateral gait. And I said, okay. So I mean, I'm trying to learn as much as I can about what a Peruvian Paso is supposed to do, and this Peruvian Bozal, which is right. It's the same as it's basically like a halter uh, for or a hackamore, only it had 2 points on the back, and the reins come off of that, and you're supposed to hold them up. And I was like, okay. I said, look, I've never done one like this, but I'll do it, and did. And she was very interesting to train. She was not hard to train. I mean,
Mm.
she was a typical mare where she was a little more difficult that way to get her to bond or roll for me. But once I got her to do that, that mare would do anything. But as you would expect on a stepping pace or a fast stepping pace, and that's what they're supposed to do, is very fast, which you can achieve that. I had a GPS on her, and I was doing almost 15 mile an hour
Dang.
on her. Yeah, but it's not an even 4B gate. It's
Right.
it's an extended um, uh, intermediate gate that is real reachy by nature. It's a lateral gate, so they're really going to be able to stretch out. And that was, I mean, top speed. She was smoking along, and that's what they want to do. And with her nose stuck out and that Bozal, and I got the Bozal in my hands, and um, got done with her, and they wanted to, watch her. I said, well, I insisted they watch. I said, look, you need to make sure that I've done this what you want. What this
Right.
is what this for. And they were like, oh yeah, you did. We knew you knew what to do. And I'm like, well, I didn't know what to do. I know the principle of what you wanted me to achieve, And I'm like,
Yeah.
and I've never trained in a Peruvian Bozal since. I mean, so that was the only Peruvian I've trained. So it was interesting. But yeah, they were happy, and they're raising them for show and for some go. So it was a learner for me. And a lot of times you learn, people are paying you to do something for them, and you're able to learn a bunch of stuff at the same
Oh yeah.
time. Which is kind of
Yeah.
cool.
Well,
Not
I
that I
guess
know a lot about the Peruvians or the Pasafinos, because I haven't done that much, around that specific breed, but I could pick up whatever they need to do. You can make it happen.
Yeah. So I guess the verdict is outside Tennessee Walkers, you like Tennessee Walkers, right?
Yeah, fox trotters are good, but fox
Yeah.
trotters are basically a glorified Tennessee Walker too.
Yeah.
Rocky Mountains were a good breed, glorified, come out of Tennessee Walkers. Most of these horses that were done during colonial days were the foundation for Tennessee Walker. Narragansett Pacer with a Morgan and Thoroughbred cross. I mean, so they've been around for a long, long time. Gaited horses. The breed as a Tennessee Walker started in 1939. I think they started the breed registry. Well, you know, they've been riding them long before that. Colonial
Mm-hmm.
days, certainly, the Civil War. Most of the officers were on gaited horses, and those, which was early, Tennessee Walker type because they're smooth, a lot of stamina, can go a long way, good mind. So yeah, there's a lot of quarter horses I like, Arabs I like, Appies I've liked them. They're tough horse for the most part. Probably my least favorite breed is because there's been very few of them that have really been able to have a lot of bottom end to them and really go for a long time, and that's paints. Just
Mm.
haven't had it, and I never understood why. My grandpas would not ride a paint.
Oh,
Would
little
wouldn't do it.
little biasness there.
Little biasness, and they,
Huh.
and they they were not called paints, and when I was a kid, they were
Pinto, right?
pinto.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they would not ride them because they said they were just they were Indian horses that had no specific selective breeding, and they were just junk horses,
Okay.
and they didn't have any bottom end. There's only a couple of them that I ever trained, and I've trained a lot of paints that had any really good bottom end. I know this is going to make some paint people mad, but I mean, this is my experience. Only a very few handful that really had some really good deep bottom end to them. A lot of them will be fine, and then they just play out. They even with you exercising them and build them up like you would an athlete
Like
for
stamina.
getting good stamina, they just couldn't do it. And then maybe there's something to that because some of the toughest horses I've ever been on have been Appies, which were still an Indian horse, from the
Nez
Nez Perce
Perce.
tribe,
Mm-hmm.
and they were selectively bred,
Right.
long, long ago, and
One of the first
some of those
civilizations to
horses.
start doing that, really.
That's right, and I've heard people say bad things about paint or Appy horses, and I said, yeah, they're horrible horses, all right. A guy named Chief Joseph, with 200 men, women, and children in a village, outran the U.S. Or cavalry for months
Mm-hmm.
and months. Yeah, that was the horses that were horrible that held them back.
Going through some really rough country too. I'll tell you what.
Well, some of the worst. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah. Anyway, that's kind of my take. But there's a lot of horses, a lot of breeds I've never worked. A lot of horses of specific breeds I've worked, and I like the ones that are between my knees at the time, as long as they stay between my knees.
Yeah. All right. With that, we'll put it out to pasture.